Welcome back to the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, and I'm so honored to share this space with you as we explore the many layers of birth and parenting. And today we're going to talk about aspects that are so important: pleasure, power, equity, and healing. Today we have a heartfelt and powerful conversation with someone whose story deeply moved me, Simone Toomer. And she's super special to me because we teach together for the New York City Doula-wide initiative and with Healthy Women, Healthy Futures of Brooklyn. But let me tell you a bit about Simone. She's a mother, a birth and postpartum doula, an international board certified lactation consultant, an educator, a sleep educator, and a fierce advocate for birthing autonomy and community care. As a young Black mother, Simone entered birth with knowledge, clarity, and intention, yet she was met with resistance. Providers who doubted her, questioned her choices, and challenged her desire for an intervention-free birth. And I have to say, Simone, I've been waiting for today. I want to thank you for joining me and being willing to share not only all your knowledge and wisdom, but your personal journey too. Welcome.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm very excited to be here. And for anyone listening or viewing, doulas, birth workers, expecting parents, it's really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And I know for so many of us, right, that have made a lifetime career out of supporting others during this journey with pregnancy, birth, and parenting, it so often started with something personal in our own journey. So can you take us back, like to that first pregnancy and a little bit about what that was like in preparing for your first birth?
Sure, definitely. I mean, I think a disclaimer is I come from a big family. I'm the oldest. It was never foreign to have little ones around me and, be very family centered. And so when I got pregnant back in 2012, there was really no question about if I wanted an epidural or not. I would say at that point, I wasn't ready for a home birth. I wasn't thinking that just yet. But I have a good friend who we've actually birthed together in both times around the same time, who had all her babies at home. And so the bug was planted, the seed was planted, right? But I took a very thorough childbirth ed with the Department of Health, right? I was blessed to have a doula by my side, which is in Brooklyn with the Department of Health, and later on became a doula for that program. And very much felt like my body is made for this. Like, you can't tell me anything regarding what could go wrong in the sense of proper knowledge, proper advocacy, proper support. And it just made sense that I wouldn't have an epidural just because I was like, hey, there's so many other ways to tap into comfort. I didn't see childbirth as pain per se, but I didn't really label it because I didn't know what to expect, right? My mom has 5, one accidentally born at home, and the third born at home. She wasn't believed. She went to the hospital and they told her, go home, you're not really in labor. And an hour or two later, she birthed my sister at home. So I think in weird subconscious ways, things were being planted and watered all throughout my childhood. And so I had an awesome doula in New York, Ellen Farhi, who is now a home birth midwife. And I had a childbirth education taught by Doma, who's, an elder in the birth community, right? So I just had all of these great hard hitters around me. And on the other side, my OB was kind of looking at me like I was crazy as I planned my birth plan.
Oh, and isn't that so sad? Here you had so much wisdom from personal experience and wow, knowing your team of support, you had amazing support.
Yeah.
So what did that feel like? Like, how did you navigate that with your obstetrician?
It's funny because even when we have partners, sometimes they're like, are you sure you want that? Or, they might look at you and be like, I'm a pretty petite girl. Are you sure you can handle that? And I was like, you guys, like, just stop talking to me. So I remember my OB saying, it's 2012, modern medicine. Why would you put yourself through that pain? And then another one on the team said to me, I have 5 kids and I had an epidural with each and every one of them. Why even do that to yourself? And for me, the biggest thing is not to embody someone else's journey. Yes, fears and concerns do come up. I think we live in a society where we are unfortunately planted insecurities from very early on in ways that we don't even understand and see. So when we are coming up to a point of a big accomplishment, those whispers kind of come back up, right? And so for me, it was kind of knocking them down. Like, just don't talk to me. I process things with my doula. I process things with Amadoma in class. And that was an 8-week class, right? We got to think about also what does thorough education look like when we're really talking about holistic care, right? Not just a 2-3 hour childbirth ed, but really nutrition and moving your body and physiological births and honoring what your body needs. And I really just listened and went in with my own plan, labor at home as long as possible, enter with your partner and your doula. And that's exactly how it happened, with a little spin of Hurricane Sandy being thrown in the mix.
Oh my goodness. That's a big spin too. Were you able to
That's a big
safely
spin.
travel?
It was ironic because in a weird way, I slept and stayed in bed for 2 days. I believe, if I remember, Hurricane Sandy was over a weekend and Mackenzie was born Monday-ish, right as the storm ended. And I thought, I'm just going to lay in bed and relax because I don't want to walk and keep myself busy. And then I go into labor. But possibly the relaxation and being in bed allowed me to really relax and let go, because labor started in the middle of the night as the storm was coming down. And we did have to travel, like reroute. There were power lines down on the ground. There was flooding. Brooklyn got hit really, really bad in certain areas. And we made it. I labored at home on purpose, but also not realizing how I was progressing. There was a little bit of doubt on my end in the beginning with constantly trying to go back to bed. So I would wake up with every wave and then go back to sleep, or try to. And then I would go in the bathroom and try to go back and lay down. And after a few, I was like, this is that pattern that they talk about, right? This is like, despite what I do, walk, drink some water, it keeps coming. So I think labor is starting. And very fast it revved up, and I didn't want to be touched or talked to. I'm a very internal person in that sense with both of my births. And I just was on the birthing ball. And as I was working through some positions, because it was a lot of back labor, my back was on fire. And I was on that birthing ball rocking back and forth and kept those lights off until I had to get dressed to go to the hospital. And I called my doula, and she met us in triage, and I was 9 centimeters. And they kind of were like, whoa, you're a first time mom. What's going on? Are you sure? And very, very quickly, they broke my water, which at the time I didn't know that your water didn't have to be artificially broken, right? So they did that, and they told me, so you might lose some centimeters here. So we're just going to leave, give you some time, and see what happens. And within minutes, my body, that without an epidural, your body starts to push and bear down. And they had to go and run out the room and grab the doctors. And, my sister was there, my partner was there. And everyone was like, are you sure? And she came, I think, within an hour.
What an incredible journey, right? But such trust that you had, such knowledge from outside, but also inner knowing and knowledge to trust your
Yes.
body and relax and listen. Now, how did you
Yes.
have interactions with your doctor after that labor to kind of process with them, or?
No, I did not. Like us. I remember, so it was Hurricane Sandy, so he couldn't even make it in time, right? Just given how fast I was laboring. He was coming, I believe, from Staten Island. And I remember just talking to the nurses, because of course, in the midst of everything, they're still like, sign papers and do this. And I was like, stop talking to me, please, please. And then my 6-week checkup came, and I was blessed to have friends and family come throughout those 6 weeks to nourish me as I was breastfeeding. And that the power of community is so powerful, you know? Um, and I remember leaving that appointment with them giving me formula. And this stands out to me because it feels like in so many ways, it was like I was exclusively breastfeeding. My
Right.
daughter was a chunky one. And they were like, just in case it doesn't work out, like just in case, like just have this just in case. And I had WIC at the time. And it's ironic that many people don't know the benefits of WIC, that when you breastfeed, you get more food for yourself. And so many people associate WIC with formula that I just never went back. I was like, all is going well, you know? So I just remember taking the formula to kind of shut them up and then giving it away to another mom. But from the very beginning, even before going to my 6-week checkup, it was like, just have it just in case. And we know also research shows that if you have formula, you're more likely to use it, right? You're not likely to kind of work through those kinks that organically might come up. And once again, I kind of was like, I don't need this. Like my body's going to do what it has to do. And that was it. And then I changed providers for my second.
Well, before we go to your second, I want to
Yes,
just say, right, like for everyone listening, right, that was a lot of like negative messages that came through
yes,
that from your beginning pregnancy till after birth. And this is so sad because we still hear
yes.
this today. But can I ask, how did you feel after that birth? What were some of
No,
your
yeah.
feelings?
No, that's a great question because within a year and a half, I became a doula after that, right? And so it was kind of as if I looked around and I said, well, if a family is not as stubborn as I was and didn't have as much education, they would fall into the beliefs of the inadequacy of their body and their support team, right? Or they would not even have the power to reconsider someone else they could birth with or another hospital they could go to, right? And so very quickly, I was like, Ellen, I want to become a doula. Like, tell me what to do. And I trained for birth and postpartum in 2014 with Doula Trainings International. And it was a combined birth and postpartum doula training, which was beautiful because I think also as a mother, having the option to support birth and postpartum at different stages of my life was really good, right? Like sometimes I was like only doing postpartum, sometimes I was doing birth, but I never felt inadequate. Like their messaging never made me doubt myself or think something could go wrong. It was just like, well, I'm not birthing with them next time. And more people need support to know what natural physiological birth looks like, what breastfeeding looks like. In a weird way, you know, we always hear Black women don't breastfeed. And I will have to say, I disagree with that. I think data is skewed in regards to we're not capturing those who are breastfeeding and sharing their positive stories. And we also know, unfortunately, biases show up in the hospital systems regarding the support we get, right? And so that's another layer to it. And so I was a part of La Leche League. I later became a part of Chocolate Milk Cafe. And so if we think about we are people meant to be in community, what would that look like if we kept that? The education came because we watched our moms, our aunties, our sisters breastfeed or give birth, and we heard those stories. And that's something that I love. Support groups. I'm passionate about support groups. I'm passionate about sharing the stories from generation to generation. And even my daughter to eventually experience her brother's birth, you know, like those are important to us because I think that's innate to us. And unfortunately, as a society, we've gotten far from the innate wisdoms.
Yes. Are you curious about enhancing pleasure and easing discomfort in labor? Orgasmic Birth and Dame present the Pleasure Vibe Fin, a waterproof vibrator designed to empower your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Boost your oxytocin, ease discomfort naturally, and transform your birth into an empowered and even orgasmic experience. Plus, support postpartum healing and reconnect with your body. Are you ready to embrace the power of pleasure? Click below, learn more, and start your transformation today. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that, Simone. And so you became a doula, And what's the age difference? How much time passed before
Yeah,
you were pregnant again?
it was 5.5 years.
And
Yeah,
what was that journey like now? So you began that pregnancy from a different space. You were already
I did.
supporting others and really
Yes.
helping others create the community that you had.
Yes. It was ironically, I remember emailing a midwife being like, hey, we're planning and I want to interview you. And within a month, it was like, okay, I'm pregnant. I want to interview you. And midwifery care is so beautiful. Midwifery care is so holistic, not only in a low non-intervention way, but whole mind, body, spirit way, right? And you really cannot have birth and neglect one of those, right? I think there's a sense of wanting to detach certain experiences and feelings, and it's okay. But sometimes I think, why, right? Like, birth can be such a high and such a rush for somebody. And if we're looking at trauma, if we're looking at resistance, if we can work through those, I wonder what that would allow us to, like, where that would allow us to go. And I had my home birth midwife. She's now retired, Takia Ballard. I believe she's moved south, which a lot of us do from the north. And I just remember appointments being an hour long. I remember being asked how I was sleeping. I remember being asked, how I was eating. What were my concerns with anxiety? With my second, I actually ironically had anxiety that got worse during postpartum. And that was interesting in a sense of knowing too much as a doula. So I kind of played out all of the scenarios in my head. And for a little bit, he was transverse, which is, if you know positioning of the body, baby could be head down, baby could be rotated, baby could be sideways, right? And I was like, if he's transverse, there's no way he can get out. Like, what's going to happen? I remember asking my midwife if he's breached, what does that look like? And I was confident in her experience in different communities and hospital systems that if something did happen, I felt very, very well supported and that we had a solid backup plan. And I had a doula myself. It was very important for me to also have a doula. Tanisha, who till this day,
Yes.
I've just been blessed with just such great people. And my same time, ironically, my labor started as my first. My body just at night, middle of the night, 2-ish a.m. But within 2-3 contractions, I was like, oh, this is labor. I knew it was labor.
So you recognized this time
I
that
very
memory
quickly,
came
very
back.
quickly. Yes. And I immediately went into the shower. I said, hey, I think something's happening, but let me go in the shower. I was in there for about an hour. And then I called my midwife and my doula as I got out. And everyone was like, we're going to come. And I was like, you guys don't have to come yet. Like, it's okay. I'm going to just sit on my birthing ball. Everyone was like, Simone, let's just come. The worst thing is we're there. We're sitting on the couch talking. But within an hour of that, I had the urge to push. And I kept telling everyone, I want to use the bathroom, which, right, like, I didn't equate it to pushing out a baby. And my doula came. She did some great massage, back pressure, counter pressure, hip squeezes. I kind of knew what my body needed. She had hot oils, which were really great, like cinnamon and certain things to counteract that pressure. And I remember my midwife just being like, are you pushing? And I was like, because I have to poop. And it was like, no, you have a baby trying to come out. And I was on the toilet at this point. So I had transitioned from the birthing ball in the living room to the toilet. And my son was born on the toilet.
Really?
everybody in my bathroom. I don't even know how everyone fit, but my daughter slept the whole time through everything. And she woke up to her brother's first cry.
How beautiful. And I know that so many people, right? You must get this too. They're always worried they're going to give birth on the toilet and the baby will
Yes.
fall in. So can
Yes.
you explain like what happened? How was that?
Yes.
Were you supported?
Yes, that was so funny because I'm sitting there and I found my rhythm. So I'm tapping through each wave, and it's like my metaphor for contractions are waves because it really, we know it builds up, it hits a peak. You got to get around that, over it, and down. And I remember my midwife being like, blow out his first birthday candles. So it allowed me to center my breath, center my pushing. She asked me to just scoot my hips forward and she caught him. And then he was on my chest.
Yeah.
You know, so if it wasn't for that, probably like little, like trying to get over the toilet seat, he probably would have been, I would have probably been able to catch him, but she had to direct me a little bit.
Beautiful. And how were you feeling at that moment? Can you describe some of what it was like to birth at home with such a team that was so connected to you?
You know, it's interesting because I don't know if everyone would describe birth as a high, but there is like a hormonal high. I feel like there's nothing I have experienced ever in life that has brought me to that. Like I feel like I'm floating. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's intense. And of course, we know faster labors are more intense because your body's doing a lot in a short amount of time. So I was dropping some F bombs, right? Like it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure I woke up a few neighbors, but I felt so exhilarated and so like, oh my gosh, I just did this.
I think that's so important. I love hearing that. I kind of can feel goosebumps, because you can
Yes,
feel your passion and power and, having that team that really honors you, as you said,
yes,
body, mind, spirit in every
yes,
way, right? And what
absolutely.
was that postpartum like? Because you talked about having a little bit more anxiety. This is
Yeah,
baby number two, your son. What
yeah.
came next?
So a lot of prayer, I'll say. Right. Once again, thankful for the community that I had because I would have been in a really bad place if it wasn't for certain people, doulas, lactation consultants. So that first latch in my bed within the hour after birth, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not what a latch should feel like. Right. And it felt like shards of glass going through my nipples every time I latched my second.
Wow.
And I remember by the second day, I was just like, I was calling over friends and people like, hey, can you assess, like something's off and I don't know what's going on. And my mentor, who, before being IBCLC, LaShonda, I have so many great people I could shout out. She was like, so I think there might be a tie. I went to a support group by Eden Bertrand, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know if she's in the States anymore. I believe she's Canadian. So she might've went back up north. He wasn't gaining weight. And the pediatrician was like, it's okay. Like, babies lose a little bit of weight. And then he stopped pooping. And once again, it's okay. And in my mama intuition, I was like, this is not okay. And so I changed providers, I changed pediatricians again, right? Like hire and fire, hire and fire. We have no problem with that. And I took him for body work first, like from a holistic standpoint. He had cranial sacral therapy, which works on the nervous system. Given a fast labor, we could assume that he was just a little tight, a little tense, right? As an IBCLC now, I do consider the whole birth, the whole journey and experiences with mom and baby a dyad, right? And so he was just a little chompy. He did have a tongue tie. And so we got that released at day 13. But I also started pumping about day 4. I was concerned about his intake. I was nursing. My partner was bottle feeding. I was pumping. And in my head, my anxiety came from, what if I do bottles and he never goes back to the breast? But then there were certain things that were like, I'm concerned about him breathing next to me, like certain things that had nothing to do with the problems we had, where eventually I was like, oh, this is like postpartum anxiety. Like this does not make sense, but these intrusive thoughts are still happening. I'm waking up like hyperventilating, like this is not good. And I talked to Takia about it. I made sure to stay social with moms and just get out and go for walks and fresh air because that helped. And just I didn't need a therapist, but from a social aspect, I think my social circles were like therapy for me, but I knew that something was the matter.
Yeah. And how wonderful that you spoke up, right? We say so often,
Yeah,
sometimes people are feeling there's an issue or feeling down and they don't speak up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just thank
yeah,
you. And thank you for sharing about how important it is to reach out
yeah.
and talk to others.
Yes, yes. And I mean, I think at that point, I did start some like holistic ways of managing and the anxiety, and eventually no longer needed it. But it was definitely a journey I did not expect to go through. I was at my mom's probably every weekend just to kind of mitigate certain things, and my sisters to help me and so forth.
Yeah. And Simone, I'm hearing so much wisdom in your own stories and journey. But one piece I want to pull out for our listeners is you've talked a lot about community, and I know that you say we heal in community. For
Yes.
someone that's like, maybe pregnant for the first time, can you go a little bit more into that? What do you even, suggest or support people in your
Yeah.
clients, and how can they create that?
Yes, no, I think, finding a childbirth ed, a support group with people who are due around your due date is really important. I'm now in Charlotte. I'm not in New York City anymore. So it's different. We have to drive everywhere. Not everything is just let me walk up the block. But sharing birth stories are really important. Knowing someone else may be going through the same thing as you is really important, or they might have gone through it before and can share their 2 cents and their wisdom with you. And there's something I'm getting older now, and there's something to me that I'm enjoying more and more about just sitting at the feet of the elders and listening to their stories. And hopefully I could pass that on to my daughter and my son, right? Like one day he will also, God's willing, have children and be blessed to support that process. And so community, love is so many things, whether it's nourishing someone through food, through teas, through herbs, and we need that. We're not meant to be in solitude.
Thank you. And something else I know that you say, I've heard you actually say it before, like reclaim your body and your birth. Can you
Yes.
share again how can people do that?
Yeah, I've been more and more, I'm looking at not only the lens of birth from like a rite of passage. Like God has blessed us with the ability to give life, like give birth, bring life into this world. Um, but more so, once upon a time, midwifery was the only way to go, right? Like it is so like this whole OB hospital system is like 100 years old, right? Like
Right.
let's not forget how things were done before us. We know we know there's more science-based things. We know if you're high risk, no, you should not have a home birth, right? We know there are things to honor Western medicine for. However, there are certain things that unfortunately we sometimes make more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so reclaiming birth can look different for each person, whether it's choosing a provider or saying who you don't want or do want in the birth room, right? What do you want a part of your postpartum journey? And these conversations are really, really good to have early on before you're in the throes of things that may not be able to identify what might work for you and your family.
Beautiful. And what would be one last thing you would want to share with everyone that's listening and on this journey of birth and parenting?
Yes, I think, I'm always talking about staying curious. And I think that is a statement for both birth professionals and parents to be. We are always learning. We never know too much to learn and sit with somebody and break bread and share a story or two. And the more you stay curious, the more you grow and evolve. And that is going to just bring you to your best self. So just always stay curious. Pride and ego does not have to be a part of anything. It does not. Like the humility of just being with one another and taking everything as a learning opportunity is just beautiful, because that's like we're all connected. We are our brothers and our sisters keepers.
What great wisdom. I know, Simone, so many people want to find out how can they follow you? Are there
Yes.
offerings that you have? I know you're in Charlotte, right? But are there things you can share so people can reach out to you anywhere?
Yes. So you can definitely find me on like Facebook, just under my name, Simone Toomer. You can find me on Instagram underneath my business name, Wise Woman Doula. I am still mentoring doulas, teaching lactation and feeding classes. I take births occasionally, but I'm full time definitely within the lactation and postpartum world, and mentoring those aspiring to become LCs and doulas, and kind of passing the torch a little bit.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom and your birth stories so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for having me.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us. We wouldn't be here without knowing that we're helping you also on your journey. And we always love to hear, what are you taking away? Do you have any questions? Please message us, tag us both. And as you know, if you're driving and listening to this, don't look below now, but all of Simone's information will be in the show notes. So wherever you're watching or listening, you can look below and click directly to her website and social. And we hope you'll join us for the next episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.